where do we start? We can start with, I don't know, like I know you had mentioned you were going to talk about, so going back to Span Inka, going back into a deeper dive into your journey with Pachamama.
Yeah, okay. Let's talk through that one once and for all, and then we can like segue as necessary. But that's actually it's pretty fresh in my mind, and I've got some notes I wrote down during it too, which I can always pull out a little bit later. But all right, we'll go on the journey. I'll do the slightly shortened version as well.
Okay.
But I remember I'd met you. You told me about this place. You said it was great. You gave me some really good, like I said on the first pod we did together, awesome trip reports, if you want to call it that.
Yeah. Nothing but high praise for them.
Yeah, and like your explanations of everything, and I guess just your whole like aura was like, okay, this is obviously the right place to go to. And a lot of people talk about ayahuasca like it comes to you, and all that kind of stuff. So
That's right,
it ticked all those sort of boxes.
Absolutely.
And so I actually booked it. I remember booking it around a time that, I was working on a lot of stuff in my life. I just quit Apple. I was like, fuck this, just had my annual leave, and it was going to be a case of like, we'll see what happens, one of those sort of quitting your job scenarios where you're not necessarily going straight into another one, which, I'm a bit of a fan of. I know everyone gets freaked out by that, and I mean that's modern society for you, right? I mean, a little different if you've got kids and a mortgage. Obviously there's more pressure too.
That space of the unknown where you're just jumping, you're just diving in head first, you don't know what can happen. I love those moments, man. It really shows like what you're made of.
I remember you telling me about how you did that on your first sort of South American adventure. You were kind of just in that place too. Absolutely. And, and then, we did that starting the business after as well, actually. So there's been a few of those moments, and then there's been that big reset that I had as well, which I think ties into a lot of the stuff we talk about, in hindsight.
Yeah.
I can see why that was necessary and everything. And I can see everywhere I went wrong, which I think is important. I mean, that's half the battle in life. Because if you can figure out where you went wrong, you can start going right. So I was in one of those sort of phases back then in a way. And I was like, well, I'll go drink ayahuasca. And obviously the danger there is just thinking it's going to fix everything, because there's a lot of examples I can give you on this like kind of journey that I walk you through where it's just like, oh yeah, people are still fucked. Like even after they drink ayahuasca, like not fucked. I mean, it definitely helps shift them in the right direction, but it doesn't instantly make everyone, Jesus or the Buddha or something, you know what I mean? Oh, wow. It's a big starting point though, and a good reset for a lot of people sometimes too. Yeah. Depending on what you need. So you told me about this. You were really good. Like I remember you gave me even the place to stay that you stayed.
Oh yeah.
And I ended up going with pretty much everything.
Nice.
Yeah, I booked that. I booked all the flights and booked Sapan Inka, spoke to Eric over some emails, mentioned that I was your friend, and he said something back like, oh yeah, Malik's a really good friend. So so it was kind of set up, and I was really into the Aubrey Marcus kind of stuff at that point in time. Listening to all his trip reports, and I was like, yeah, let's fly on some dragons and shit, but also really apprehensive. I remember being quite scared that I was going to get my ass handed to me, which I think I told you about last time a little bit. I was like, oh fuck, I haven't been like a great boy. I just thought I was going to get absolutely pummeled. And that didn't happen, which I'll explain as well. But so get on the flight, get there. And for the first couple of days, they just tell you to hang out in Cusco and acclimate to the climate a little bit and whatnot. And so that's exactly what I did. But I remember when I got there, it's a little clunky because, I mean, I don't know if Peru is a third world country or how we measure that. I don't think it is. It's definitely not that bad or anything in terms of infrastructure, but it certainly isn't like flying into some major city when you fly into Cusco, right?
No way.
Yeah,
You're off on the tarmac.
Yeah, you pretty much get off, and it looks like a normal airport until you get to the airport car park, and it's just a dirt like car park. It's not even what do you call it? Tar. I don't know. It's no roads or anything. It's just a dusty car parking lot, and you're like, oh shit. And the dude that was supposed to pick me up from the hotel wasn't there. It was pretty early in the morning. And I remember I called. I was like, fuck, spinning out a bit, because you don't want to be in some strange South American country and get in the wrong taxi and get your kidneys taken or some shit. So I was a little bit like, oh, okay, it's just not the first step you want.
Yeah.
Dude sounds like he's half asleep, answers the phone. Oh, yeah, I'll be right there. I wait like another hour. He hasn't shown up. I've got no idea how far away the hotel is. Like, phones weren't quite at that level. I think I had an iPhone, but, you didn't have Wi-Fi and shit like that. So it was still a little bit more clunky to figure out where you are.
Yeah.
And then eventually I just got a cab and got dropped off. And it was like 15 minutes up the road. I could have walked there like so easily.
Yeah, it's very close.
And the dude was like all sleepy, like, oh, sorry. And like was going to give me $20 for the trouble. And I was like, nah, don't worry about it, man. But, what the fuck was that? So anyway, that was the clunky little start that I remember. And so I was staying in that little place for the first, I think, 3 days and just kind of exploring the city of Cusco, which was epic, dude.
Yeah. Oh, my God. You talk about old world meets new world, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
beautiful city.
It takes a while to just drink it in. It's really quaint. Like it's quiet. It's got a very nice, like humble little vibe to it. It's not too intense. A lot of these cities you go to, like even Amsterdam, obviously a much bigger city. But there'll be a lot of people trying to like sell you shit. Thailand, whatever. These different countries where you get kind of accosted, and you got to watch out. We've got to watch out for the guys with the there's like little scams going on. I didn't really see much of that or any. It's a bit more chill. Like people are selling stuff, but they're not like grabbing you. And it's actually just a very nice, quaint little place with lots of stray dogs walking around and these fascinating, as you said, old world meets new world. So like you've got these old Spanish constructions, and then you've got these ancient fucking, Sacsayhuaman, and even through the city you'll see those kind of melted looking rocks that people talk about. They're just right there. Like I wonder how many people watch these podcasts or see these things on, that Graham Hancock's doing and just don't realize like you get there in it's not a super long flight. It's not one of the shortest either, but about 12 hours you're there and you can touch these rocks.
Yeah.
They don't stop you touching them or anything.
No, man.
You can literally see this shit. You can see the pyramids,
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe that's more of a message to myself, to be honest, because I need to get out there more. But anyway, so pretty much I'm wandering around the town. I'm getting a feel for it. I go find that market you told me about where you got like San Pedro and stuff. Bro. So I found it. Like, I mean, it's pretty hard to miss.
Yeah.
And there's just every psychedelic thing, natural psychedelic, to be fair. It's not like they're selling tabs of acid, although they might. Yeah, so like there's just these multiple feet long chunks of San Pedro and like powdered cactus. And I remember buying so much of it, all this stuff, and realizing like I can't take any of this home. What the fuck am I doing? Ended up leaving it in the hotel room.
Yeah.
I remember one thing though, I was like a bit spooked by my hotel room for some reason. I didn't like being in it. I was little bit feeling a bit spooked around that time anyway. But part of the reason I guess I was coming to ayahuasca, I was feeling a lot of internal guilt about life and stuff. But I remember not really
that anxiety before before the journey. Yeah,
I was definitely having that. And I remember I didn't like sort of being isolated on my own, sleeping on my own at night and whatnot in that little room for some reason. So I was always burning some Palo Santo and whatnot. But in the lead up, I'd had like a slightly unpleasant acid trip like a few months before. And, there's a few things where I think I was just like, needed a nice reset. The fear was creeping in. The fear of life, I think around that time, as I reflect now actually, was encroaching in on me a bit. And this is probably what ayahuasca cleared out most for me without you really realizing. Because the trouble is when things kind of creep in on you, it's not as noticeable for yourself to notice that, right? Until you go and have a reset like this and go like, I've been worrying about shit I don't need to worry about. And that's kind of how I felt after. But so anyway, then everything gets really good though. So a little clunky at the start, explored the city on my own, and I really enjoyed just those few days. And then the van to collect me for Span Inka, the retreat, eventually comes. And I wasn't sure if it was going to be another case of like, they're on island time. It's not an island, but you know how like people say island time.
Oh yeah.
I thought, is Peru just on some sort of South American time where people are like, well, they might show up today or tomorrow, but they came right on time. The van came they're quite organized.
Yeah,
actually.
they're very prompt.
Yeah, Eric and Nilda's operation is clockwork. So they rock up, and then I get in. And what's really cool is you get to meet all the people that you're going to drink ayahuasca with. Didn't really dawn on me that they're going to be picking up everyone, and you're going to have a few chats, and you're going to journey together and everything. Yeah. And so that's a really nice way to meet them all. And there's 2 New Zealand guys in there. So that's great. Okay, cool. English speaking people, obviously mostly tourists. I should have thought of that. An American chick who's a bit older, from Silicon Valley. She worked in some sort of digital media or something, and she had some wild stories of her own. And then a guy that was like half German, half Peruvian, so could speak fluent Spanish and English. So he was, and I think he lived locally. So he was a great way for us all to get around, and like, he could navigate things really easy for us as a group. And I can't remember who was driving. I don't think it was Eric or Neil.
No, they have like another guy.
Was that some dude, right? Yeah. So some dude drives us there, and it's a little bit of a drive because you're going like up into the Andes.
Yeah, man.
Right,
brother. You're going. Yeah, I think they're now located in they're in the Inca, the Valley of the Incas.
Yeah, that's where they were. Like, so when I looked on the website, that's where I went. Yeah. So they must have relocated before I went. Yeah. And it looks like they're still in that same beautiful house. And I think I put some pictures up when we were in the pod we were doing. I found some screen grabs and put it up during. You saw them? Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
It's this beautiful house with nice big timber beams, and it's really nicely constructed. But yeah, you drive up, like, it's not like, you're in the Andes pretty quick. You're in like the wilderness pretty quick. And there's these nice little sort of settlements and townships along the way. And they're in one. It's just this nice little country vibe. It's freaking beautiful, man. And it almost just, you don't, I want to go a second time, which I haven't yet, as I keep alluding to, we should at some point. Because I don't know if so much is sort of blowing your mind that not really taking it all in. You're kind of like, oh, I'm in this, wow, where are we here? Oh, this looks good. And then before you know it, you're in the house, and they're doing the talk, having a little dinner. And actually, we didn't have any dinner because they do a quick talk and then do some individual talks, and then you're straight down to drinking the first brew. So that night you're going to drink. So you sort of know that. So you're just like, you're in a little bit of that mindset of like, yeah, pretty soon I'll be chucking my guts up.
Is that what you would think?
I was thinking maybe I'd be one of the people that didn't actually. I was like, maybe I'll, because I've heard that not everyone does. And then Eric reinforces that a little bit. But I love the pre-chat. I'm going to talk you through that now too, because I think anyone listening would like to hear about this, and you might not have had this or forgotten what it's like to have the pre-conversation, because at the time I'm just like, I'm hearing it all for the first time. And I know there's some wild shit that happens with ayahuasca and the spirit world, and I'm pretty open to that. I listen to a lot of Aubrey's trip reports. So like, you hear some wild shit. And Eric seems very down to earth, but he sort of gives you a quick brief beforehand. And I remember a few of the key points where he was sort of saying, not everyone purges, but it's pretty common that you will. It can be crying. It can be, shitting, puking. He didn't use those words, but like, we knew what he meant. It's all normal. Toilet's there. You got a bucket. If you feel, I remember this description was like the most like, oh fuck, and he said, he's going through a few do's and don'ts. Probably how to sort of not affect each other's trip too much. One of them he said though is like, if you feel this sort of need to sort of sing out, maybe it's better to push back down. And it's like, oh, okay. And he's like, it's like, and he was struggling to find the word in English. It's like possession. And so when he finds it, he looks happy, like he's finally found the word. But when he says the word possession, we're like, whoa, well, that sounds really fucked. But for him, it's just the joy of finding the word. And I'm like, that sounded like a good thing, but it's definitely not. But I think the way he was sort of talking about it is, I mean, obviously it's serious, but it's also not so serious that he hasn't dealt with it before. And it's like, it's a thing that can happen. So you don't you don't let that voice connect to your body. Whatever the process is like you push it back down and you purge instead, I believe was the instruction at the time. So it's a little bit vague because this was like going on 8 years ago now. So time has flown. And I remember that was like, oh, that's nice and spooky. That's great. Can't wait to drink this shit and have to think about that. Thing is, at the time though, I think I was very open to like, good to know. Rather know that than not know it.
Yeah.
Let's rock on. Let's hold some space and purge out some bullshit. So I was like, no problem. But yeah, that was like, okay, fuck. Then he has these sort of separate chats with everyone, probably to make sure that, you know, you're not like, you know, a few hairs away from like completely snapping, you know, your whole reality, not too unhinged. And so, you know, he's obviously figuring out something's brought people to come to want to drink. Could be really heavy stuff. Could be like the guys from NZ that were more like it's part of their traveling adventures. I don't know because it wasn't there for their private chat, but I would think that's more where they were coming from. The lady from LA or wherever she was from, I think it was LA. You know, maybe dealing with some stuff, you know, etc. And I was sort of like, yeah, I got some personal stuff going on. Told him sort of everything, and he was like, yeah, okay. So you know, everyone was good to go.
Okay. So you had so after he gave the instructions, you all had the private kind of disclosure, like right there in front of the whole group.
Oh, not in front of the group. No, okay, everyone gets sent to their room. And he was calling people out one by one for the private little. Okay. Yeah. That'd be wild. Hey, tell everyone you're bullshit, huh? Yeah, sounds fucked. Yeah, and then they clap the level of bullshit you're sort of dealing with in your life. So he sort of did that with each individual, and then he just sort of doesn't. I think he gives you some indication that you will drink tonight, and then everyone gets sent back to their room for a little bit to sort of just freshen up or whatever.
Yeah, rest up.
Yeah, a little bit, and then they call you up to the ceremonial room to drink the ayahuasca, and you know the first night. Is the first time you're going to taste it if you've never done it before too. So he's got a little beaker that he's actually measuring the exact amounts, a glass beaker, and he's preparing it. He also mentions that him and Nilda may not drink, and they also may. Yeah, so they don't drink every night, he sort of explains. And I remember thinking, I hope they drink. Like, I don't know why. It's like, you know, but I sort of wanted them to. But they absolutely did. And so we go up into the room, you know, it's not dark yet. It's sun setting kind of thing.
Yeah, that's something.
On dusk from memory, yeah. And then he calls each person up like one at a time slowly to come drink.
Yeah.
And it sort of goes around a semicircle. And so I go up and everyone's just kind of like sculling it down. So I'm like, yep, I'm going to be doing that too. No problem. And I remember when I finally got called up and then, you know, you say like salute or something like that. Yeah. And then I drank it and I just made sure I got all that shit down before I even tasted it. And I remember I didn't think it was too bad.
Yeah.
That's the funny part.
Yeah,
the first time you drink it, you're like, hey, that's not so bad. It's pretty thick and sludgy.
Yeah.
And it is a very unique texture. It doesn't feel like a normal drink. There's something about it where it feels like it's slightly gelatinous, like it's all connected. Like if you were drinking some thick sort of Play-Doh or corn syrup, just a little. Kind of slimy, but outside of that, it's not too bad. It's just kind of earthy. But I realized, I can tell by your face.
Earthy, yeah, I like that.
I know why people hate the taste of it after, because I did after, because you know you spew so much on the shit. That your body remembers it just like a tequila that it never wants you to touch again. You're just like, that shit? Yeah, we don't like that shit. So when you taste it again, you're like, oh, yuck.
Yeah, you taste it instantly. And it just brings back all the memories that you had of like purging.
Instant connection to the memories. It's like beyond the olfactory, straight into like, you're right back there.
Yeah.
So as I say this, I can't even remember what it tastes like now. Actually, I've lost a little bit, but I would guarantee you, if it touches my lips again, I'll be like, there it is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You'll know the smell. As soon as you smell it, you'll be like, oh, gosh.
It's got a unique scent. I remember that too. It's got a definite like thing to it. And so, you know, you drink. And I remember being like, okay, cool. No problem. You know, we'll see how this goes and we'll just, you know, roll with it. Like I was pretty stoic when push comes to shove. You know, it's more the lead up that I'm not I get through it. That affects me more than like when shit's on, it's like, well, it's happening now. And I remember the first thing I started to notice was like kind of the patterns on the ground, the overlay onto sort of like surfaces of that sort of, it's these interesting patterns. I've actually got a tablecloth of it somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's these unique sort of, and I had seen them on DMT before too, without having like a full-on hit of DMT. I got the sort of pre-visuals a few times with it. I never fully crossed over into machine elf land, but I saw very similar patterns. And then what I found really interesting is I felt this sort of shivering vibe, and as I feel that, Eric would do these like like this kind of breathing out thing that perfectly matched it, and it was like, what the fuck is that? Like, how does he? And it somehow felt better, like it was clearing it away, those sort of the come-up shivers. Sort of, sometimes you feel a little bit of that on some mushrooms or something. And it's a little bit of that jittery, I don't know, nervous energy. And and you'll notice this in documentaries and stuff. You'll see that noise that the shamans often make. It's like this sort of blowing out, sort of rattlesnakey sort of sound. And it's like, oh, wow, thanks. I needed one of those.
Yeah. It's almost like it's part of their like toolkit of things to 100%. Do. So they got the Akiros, they've got that, they've got the Aguas de Florida, they've got the different tools that they use while they're doing this, and then, like you said, it kind of matches along with what you're going through at that time, which is it's intense how they just naturally know how to do those things at the certain time to bring about a certain feeling. So.
Yes, and it's weird because it's like it doesn't seem weird to you either.
Yeah,
you're like, I needed a little. What is it? The Flora de Agua?
I think
rose water. I think it translates to. And I've got a bottle next to my bed. I should like show and tell it here. Yeah, I didn't get one of those. I remember you talking about how you just felt like you were melting when he did it over you. Oh man, no, he didn't do that. They did light some Palo Santo.
Okay.
And they really light it. Yeah. And then they shake it off and it's just a big plume of smoke. So I always do it that way since I saw them. And I remember telling you about the bells, the ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling. That they used when some things got a little bit hectic in that. I think it was the last night we did it. We did it twice. Yeah. And then we did San Pedro as the final. So they're all in separate nights with a day in between. But this, so I remember it starting to come on. And the two trips intertwine a fair bit. So like it's hard to remember everything that happened in the second one, but I do remember in the first one that I delayed spewing for a long time. So the guys from New Zealand was like Jono and I'll remember the other guy's name at some point. But they were just starting to purge just quite casually. They hadn't dieted though. Like I was strict on the diet. There's like a diet, which I know you know, but if anyone's listening, you're supposed to be vegetarian, no yeast. You could eat a little bit of chicken, I think a bit of fish if you want some protein, but it's I was just drinking a lot of plant protein and making my own bread in the oven that didn't have any yeast in it. Yeah, I was trying to sort of work around. I was really strict with it. Peanut butter was okay, so I was having that. Any kind of form of protein I was trying to sort of get in. I think eggs were okay from memory. I had it on my fridge for ages, the dieta. I only took it down when we moved, recently. Nice. Still got it stored in a little folder on my desktop because that one really worked for me. Those instructions were quite like, I felt I could follow them. Can't remember if I got it off their site or a similar one. But they have instructions on their website anyway. So if anyone wants to, go there, they can just follow what they tell you to do. But yeah, so I'd done all that. These guys hadn't. And they sort of freely admitted to that in the bus over. And I was like, oh, I heard that doesn't go so well. And from what I could tell, they didn't have any more of a harrowing trip than me per se, but they did purge a lot more spew-wise and just more constantly. Okay. So they were just sort of spewing into their buckets, just dribbling out. I don't think they were holding back. Whereas I was like, maybe I won't spew. And, I'm one of those people like, you hold it. I don't know. You sort of, for some reason the mindset is like, you should try to avoid it because maybe you don't need to. That kind of thing where maybe I'm okay. No, just a bit sloshy in the stomach. No, it's fine. I remember it just kept building, that pressure just kept building. And I remember it dawned on me that I just wasn't comfortable spewing into the bucket in front of everyone. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's other people like me that sort of like probably yeah, I don't know, you know, maybe if you're really drunk, you don't even notice or whatever, but, you know, you're very coherent on ayahuasca. Like, so I was like, I don't really feel like just yakking in front of everyone. And this thing, and this pressure's building in my stomach, man.
Oh my God.
I'm like, this is going to get bad. So eventually it sort of dawns on me. I think I went and took like a few shits first, you know, it sort of purges a bit that way. And you think, oh, maybe that's all I needed.
Yeah.
And then it dawns on me that I better go back into the toilet because, you know, I don't want to sort of spew here in front of everyone, but maybe I should just like lean down near the bowl and just see if and without me even finishing that thought, I remember I was in there just sort of leaning down near the bowl to see if I needed to. It was already out before that thought finished. It was like, and they were the huge yaks. Nice. They were like, like apparently everyone could hear me in the ceremonial room, just like across the hall, just like,
my God.
Oh, he's purging. These kind of yelling spews. Apparently,
that's for holding on to it for so long.
Well, that's it. Hey, I think I just exactly edging your spew is not something you should necessarily do. It's a little weird. So like, I heaved, and I remember I was starting to get visions at that point. I remember seeing myself in the mirror and like looked like a scared sort of weird dude. I was like, fuck, that guy is fucking fucked up. Then after spewing, didn't look so bad, right? Like it's like the fear was gone from my eyes. And I remember seeing in the spew like a little gremlin-y face, kind of like as I flushed it, like, all right, see you later, buddy.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's just in the blackness. Your mind is just, and whether it's real, not real, I don't know, but they're much more vivid than day to day kind of, you know. Yeah. You know, that sort of the haze of looking into blackness and maybe seeing the odd shape or whatever. It's like much more vivid. And I remember getting some sort of sense of some being sifting through my inside. It was weird. It looked like my stomach was kind of pressed up a bit like a harmonica, and it looked much cleaner, like porcelain white, almost mirroring the toilet bowl. And it was like a little being was like just checking if there's any crap left in there. It was really, really just like, okay. That's, but very much in like a third eye, like a mind's eye, I should say. You know, like I was semi-imagining it, semi-dreaming, you know, you can still see the room and click back into reality, as you know. I guess again for anyone that's just, you know, curious about it. So do that, and then I remember after that purge feeling so much better, and there was no more spews for me. So I think the one benefit to my hold them till you blast them technique was like it was out and done with. Yeah, there was no more shitting or spewing or anything left after that. Actually, for that night especially. So I remember just having this blissful time. Yeah, I remember. I can't remember a lot of specific like events. I remember feeling like a light was being shone on me at different times. I remember seeing Eric and Nilda performing Icaros and different things, and them looking like these omnipotent beings with headdresses on that were very Aztec, sort of Aztec Mayan. Obviously, you know, whatever the local culture of the Andes, the Incas is what the theme was. But I had no reference point for the Incas specifically. So what I was seeing was in real time in the ayahuasca journey, these magnificent, very, I guess they're like, how would you say, symmetrical shapes, you know, very unique kind of styling to the headdresses. You know, I could. There's a few artists that do this well, and obviously you can find some old artifacts and stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, that stuff. Yeah. But this very unique style, similar to what you see when you look at Aztec. Kind of designs as well. Not so much. Mine looks a little different. I remember like, oh, that's what I saw, and they just looked like, they had these massive like headdresses on and stuff, and I was like, wow. And so I remember just different things like that. And I remember at one point, I only learned this from my notes when I read. I don't think I've told you this, but I remember at one point, something was explaining to me that I could leave my body if I wanted. And my body looked like some sort of dome shape on top of a square. Like somehow, like the leaving the body image I got was somehow related to this cube with like some sort of dome on top. It's like, oh, you see that? You can leave that if you want. And I was like, what the fuck? And I remember thinking like, nah, I'm good. You know, like I wasn't sort of in the mood to be like, let's just like take this all the way on night one. And I think that happened on night one. Like I said, it's hard to be sure. So I sort of got that offer, didn't sort of go with it. I don't know what was offering me or how. And again, just in the mind's eye, sort of like the same way you daydream, but a bit more of a vivid daydream, you know, again, to explain for anyone watching, like it's not like you shoot off into these worlds. You might have if you left the body though. I have a feeling if I did, it gets a bit more vividly I'm in this other realm more than in the physical, although you can obviously come back. Yeah, so I was like, no, I'm good. Have an amazing time. Felt so light after that fear that was encroaching on me that I was sort of talking about, where I didn't even like being on my own in the hotel room. And the hotel room isn't like a fancy, you know, where I was staying, it's like an old house with little guest rooms and, you know, probably where a Spaniard stayed at some point in time, you know, put his like weapons in the corner, who knows. So there's probably lots of interesting, you know, I don't know, spirits and energies floating around that city. Yeah. Maybe I'm picking up, well, who knows?
The city is like centuries old.
Yeah.
You know? Probably older than that, you know?
Yeah.
And so like, can you imagine the amount of people that have lived, worked, died there?
Yeah.
Families being born. Like there's so much, like spiritual connection.
I think about that stuff all the time.
And,
yes.
Yeah. The Incas, and, you know, that was their stronghold, you know,
Yeah.
the Incan, you know, warriors and the culture there, that was their home base, you know,
right.
And that's why it's so, you know, built upon by the Spanish when they came there and everything like that. So yeah, as you mentioned, you know, the place that you're staying in, that energy for sure existed there.
You're definitely picking up on it. Like there's no doubt whether you're into sort of more the woo woo or not. Like you know, and I'm very open to it, but it's a thing. There was a lot of energy there, and you know, if anyone's watched that Ancient Apocalypse series, Graham's even suggesting that there was like a prehistorical culture there, well before like the Incas, even, you know, or if there was some connection to the lineage, but there's some construction that he thinks is older than them. So definitely check that out. I got to get you. Oh, you're gonna love it. Especially if we do end up going back. Watch that before so that we can go back with that sort of lens.
Yes.
And so, so we have that session, and then I was just like, wow, okay, so that's ayahuasca. Like, fuck. And I remember going back to the hotel room after, to the room. We're staying at the retreat. And after, that's when Eric was sort of like, you know, you'll continue to journey in your room tonight, but, you know, the ceremony's now closed. And so we went back to our rooms, and I think one of the New Zealand dudes, Jono, might have that time or the second time, can't remember, wanted to go outside, and he was like, no, you can't. You know, there's like protection on the house, but there isn't outside. Yeah. And so whatever that might have resulted in, who even fucking knows? But that's also just mind-boggling, you know, type shit. Yeah. I mean, I would just love to pick Eric's brain properly and find out all these things that he knows, you know, and I tried to a little bit, but, you know, I think it's like, it's not that simple. He's not just going to go into all the different layers of reality and the complex sort of, you know.
They've learned so much over the time that they've been, you know, working with the medicine, that I'm sure that there are things that, they can't reveal to anyone, and just have to, you know, have that, the ability to, you know, kind of translate and give that information when it's necessary, you know.
Yeah. That was a big thing I think Eric is about. Yeah. Like speaking when necessary. Which is sort of more foreign to me. I'm a very verbalize everything guy. So a lot of his, because they do a little debrief with you. You know, they were actually writing a thesis at the time and recording people's conversations with their permission in the debriefs, which he would do the next day. And mine made it into his big thesis.
Oh, that's awesome.
I remember recognizing that's me. And I'm talking about how some sort of, you know, very two-dimensional flat, like almost like a playing card style being sort of walked up to me with like a swizzling, twirling sort of, looked like a tool or something. And I don't know if it did a little touch up or something, but I remember just sort of saying to it like, you know, I hope you come in love and light. Or, you know, only if you come in love and light. But Eric translated that in his thing as, I hope you come in love and light. But actually what I said to him at the time when he was recording me, because I was explaining this, is that's what I said to you know, only if you come in love and light. You know, can you come into my space was kind of what I must have been projecting out. And, you know, it did a little thing and then walked off. And weirdly, then we saw, this is one of the weirdest parts.
Really quickly, before you get into that, I love that you said that. love that you told it and you were living in your, your God self and saying, I'm not giving you permission to come into my energetic field unless you're coming in love and light. What prompted you to say that?
Well, I remember thinking a lot about all those sort of, I guess, psychic protections and it's just something that seems instinctive to me. Like I do it a lot, if I'm being honest. I've spoken to a lady called Diana Nguyen as well, who's really cool. She's basically like an energy worker, and she's a former lawyer. And I linked up with her after many years later.
Is she here?
Yeah, she's in Wollongong.
Oh, nice.
Somewhere around Wollongong. Yeah. But I'm referring to her. So this is long after the ayahuasca journey, but even she talks about putting an energy field around yourself. There's like an energy vortex kind of visualization exercise you can do, and long before that, so it's kind of a thing, and you probably know about this stuff too. But long before that, I always instinctively would do that. Like I'd put that around my mum. I put it around Tomomi all the time, and I've sort of read a lot of things over the years that talk about some of this stuff, and you do it you have to do it in a way where you're not overly investing it in the energy of like fear or anything. You just do it, and it's just there protecting them without too much like, I hope it does this or that. You're just like, it is so.
Yeah.
And so I was sort of always into a bit of that.
Yeah, very cool, man.
Yeah, and I listened to Aubrey a bit too, and he talked about some of that, and I was just like, the truths of the universe, my understanding is, always hold up. And so you can say these things. You don't, it's just like real life. You don't have to. Often when we're most frustrated in life, I don't know about you, is when we're usually pissed off. Even Jeff Bezos says this, of all people. But if there's something we should have taken action on and we didn't, and we're usually really annoyed by that. So if someone drops the ball or whatever, but we sort of knew we should have done something about it. Yeah. And it's the same with letting people in your circle or whatever. We're always really pissed because later, if we find out, it's like, why did I give him permission to sort of come into my life? And sometimes you don't know till you know, so you don't want to just close the door on everything in life either. But generally it's because you are in control of who can come into your space and who can't.
100%.
And we sometimes forget that, or we make a wrong call, which I think is okay. But you can cast those things out at any time. You always have that power.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and the only power is convincing you that you don't, right?
Yeah, whoa.
That's heavy. That's the sneaky that people and maybe even beings in these worlds you enter when you have things like ayahuasca might try to convince you otherwise, but you always have that. And so I think I was just playing by that rule book. It's like a good safe, like just going to play, just down the middle here. If you're a good guy, cheer me up. If this is some ooga booga shit, not today. But I assumed it had a good vibe, and it seemed very robotic, almost like not very personal either. It was like, you know what I mean? I don't know, something about it wasn't like I was dealing with a being with a specific personality, more like a representation of something. Or it was all very confused. Like it's a lot to take in when you're drinking this stuff, right? Yeah. And you've got all these questions for Eric, who's very, as you said, maybe, like it's like, fuck man, like anything else you can give me here? Yeah. It's a symbolic. He leaves it in your court a lot, and I think it's very important that he does, but it's hard at the time because you want answers, man. Yeah. What the fuck was that?
But I think with Eric, like a lot of his answers are very veiled, and they take a lot of introspection. Him and Nilda, when they're speaking to you and they're giving you, advice, or they're giving you a feedback on what you're telling them your experience was, right? Is very veiled, and I think that's part of the beauty of how they kind of relate to the whole experience, is retelling to you what their insight was, but in a way that's not very direct. And, if we're clear enough on what happened, we can clearly see that what they're saying is very introspective and highly, highly echoes, what happened in the experience, but just at a very, not really third dimensional consciousness, probably on the cusp of fourth dimensional as well, So.
Yeah, that's right. That's why it's hard to grasp.
Yeah.
because we want to pull it back to like, I suppose you could call it third dimensional consciousness, where it's just like you can label it and move on.
Yeah.
But he's big on, I think what he was subtly doing, now that you say that, is always shifting the label off it a bit.
Yeah.
You can label it that.
Yeah.
But it's symbolic. He would say that a lot. So he was sort of trying to, I think, move away from, once you call it that, you sort of oversimplify it and you pack it away and you don't get what you're supposed to get out of this.
Yeah.
So it's like, and then your brain may just not be ready for that at the time, you know, because they train for years. We're going for one, retreat for a week. So I think he knows that there's only so much he's going to be able to impart in that week. So he doesn't try to, overdo it. But man, I'd love to get behind the scenes more with it. And so I remember saying that ended up in his little thesis as well. Well, it's not little; it's an extensive thesis. It was just one chapter, and there's a few cool chapters in it. And he's really trying to bring it back to modern psychology and like Jungianism, and bridge that gap. He's not trying to be too fanciful with the thesis. So it's really grounding it in what that could mean from a standpoint that's a bit more Western psychology rooted, but you can tell he knows the other end of it way more than just the, this could be some childhood stuff. It's also like he knows, and this is also interdimensional shit.
Interdimensional and, could be even, going back, centuries into, historical, kind of familial, stuff that's happening, intergenerational. And I think that's also the beauty of experiencing ayahuasca with Eric, Nilda, and Sapan Inka, is that you've got this added layer of a man that's gone through a process for years, to psychologically figure out how to bridge the gap, like you were saying, between the ayahuasca experience, which is highly spiritual, it's only spiritual, and then the, mental, underpinnings of what happened in the experience to mesh and to come together with this really perfect mix of an experience that's spiritual and the psychological aspects that touched on. You can't pay for that. You know what I mean? Like, who else is doing psychology and ayahuasca? There are people, but it's probably very far and few in between. And they're authentic. They're Peruvian. They're in the lineage. There aren't many of them. Maybe you've got people in the States or Australia or New Zealand that are officiating these ceremonies. But for him to be doing it and then give you that outlook, that purview, insane.
I agree. It's kind of almost perfect for Westerners to have them as a starting point to experience it, especially because it's also in the Andes and not in the jungle. So that they're the two airports you can kind of fly to when you're going to Peru. You're either going to Cusco or you're going to Iquitos. Iquitos is the jungle, which would be definitely cool too, and like obviously probably a different experience with different lineage. But to get a guy that's studying Jungian psychology in the Andes with his wife, and it was from all the trip reports I heard, they were all kind of jungle based, and this was a very different experience to what they describe. Not completely, but like very. Like the headdresses and the things I saw were of a very different flavor. And I've heard that about ayahuasca. Like it especially if it's locally sourced, it taps into the spirits of the local area for your experience.
Okay.
So that would make some sense there too, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
But and then in the hotel room, it was again the retreat room. I was tripping balls. The dude.
So after the experience, you were going to go back to your room.
So he sent everyone back to, and he said pretty much that you will still have a lot of experience to come.
Okay, gotcha.
And I did, because especially as you're drifting off into that sort of sleeping state, it's like you're in that world, man. And it's a bit more vivid and memorable than usual. As you're drifting off to sleep, you might dream a bit, but you're sort of way more present in that space as opposed to falling out of consciousness. And I saw I remember this stunning being that was completely pitch black. It might have been a tobacco spirit because I remember reading that that's what they look like. But she was just like perfect. So I guess she looked kind of African, but even her eye, the whites of her eye were black. Like everything was jet black.
Whoa, man.
Yeah. And I was just like, whoa. Yeah. And then I remember like all kinds of things like that. And the guy in the room that I was with, Jared, I believe was his name. He was talking some wild stuff. I don't know, like I couldn't be sure if I fully aligned with it either. You know, I think one thing I always do when I'm in those states is just keep one foot in and one foot out. I just keep it a little bit, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, if I don't feel that truth ringing.
Yeah.
You know, because you can have all kinds of things. And,
of course.
You know, I guess delusions and, you know, there's that hint. I said this to Byron, the temptation of psychosis. Sometimes it comes up as like, what if they're all outside trying to kill you? And you're like, you've got to stay a bit maybe. Because it's also, they may not be. And if I overreact like they are when they're not, that's just as bad as if they are.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to stay prepared.
Yeah.
People come in with whatever I'm envisaging here, you know, whatever ooga booga little energies trying to tell me some bullshit. I'm like, well, we'll just stay at the ready, but I'm not going to
deal with that then.
We'll deal with that when the time comes.
That's right.
Because there isn't too much preparation I can do right now for that anyway. Yeah. Which didn't necessarily happen to me, by the way, in this trip. Sometimes on copious amounts of weed or whatever, you can get a bit like, wow, shit, what if this or that? But anyway, but he was saying some stuff that wasn't negative, but he was like, he's talking about the Rainbow Brotherhood and how we must have been friends in a past life. And I was like, you know, maybe. And we were sort of part of this Rainbow Brotherhood. And I was like, maybe. And he was talking about some sort of feline lineage, you know, something to do with space cats. And, you know, like, again, at the time, anyone listening is like, this sounds like this guy's just talking absolute, you know, bullshit. At the time, it's like, I get where he's coming from.
Yeah,
you do get in touch with some wild stuff that might be true on some level or dimension. It may not really be the kind of stuff you want to bring up at your, you know, mother-in-law's dinner party like next week. But at the time in the setting, those thoughts might be okay to explore a little and be like, okay, maybe. It might not change the fact that I'm going to go to work, you know, next week and be a normal person in this sort of reality and chop wood and carry water, as the Buddhists say. You know, even after you get enlightened, they're like, yeah, you're still going to be chopping wood and carrying water and doing your best. So I try not to get too, I don't want to be that guy at the festival, you know, that's half naked telling people about aliens talking to, they may well be, dude, you know, but there's also like, there's ways to, I guess, work with that and still be a productive member of your tribe, you know?
Yeah, that's right.
Not just completely go off the rails. So hey, I'm listening to the stuff and just keeping one foot in, one foot out, like I like to do. And that was all cool. I mean, he was cool. He's great. I still follow him on Instagram. We don't chat much though. None of the people do I have a dialogue with.
Yeah.
It's weird.
You just come together for that one point in time and then you have an experience and then you go your separate ways back to whatever it is that you... But I feel like Pachamama just, you know, when she's able to have insight into your life, then she directs you to the most direct, you know, pathway that you're supposed to be on, I feel like. And that, you know, is similar to what happened with you after.
That is true. That is true. And I was hoping for that. And we did open the supplement store after and, you know, I had a website already. And some of that had to be reset. But that was part of the journey. You know, it definitely, that was when I did the San Pedro at the end where I sort of got that message coming from, I think, the grandfather spirit a little bit. You know, it's almost like your own inner dialogue. Yeah. And that was a beautiful day too. So, I mean, I guess there was the 2 ayahuasca sessions. The second one, he offered a second cup on that night, pretty sure. He might have on the first night too, but I think it was more the second night. Jono had the second cup. I remember him having this really vivid experience. He retold us the next day where he's flying on a condor. He was on the back of a giant snake. Oh, wow. He's basically on, you know, the 4 directions when shamans open space. They usually called the, I think it's like the south is the serpent, the west is the jaguar, or depending on the area you're in, some sort of big cat. And then the north is the ancestors usually, or the hummingbird. And then the east is the condor or the eagle or, you know, the rising sun. So the perspective. So you've got like, and then, you know, Mother Earth, Father Sky. That's usually how you open space in ceremony, I've come to know. Okay. And there's usually just different twists on it depending on the lineage or the location. The animals change sometimes, but it's almost always the snake. And so what's interesting is he was like riding on each of these animals at some point in his vision.
That's deep.
And I don't think he even knew about that. You know, I'd been reading up on this and getting into it and learning how to open space when I want to sort of meditate and stuff. You know, I would sometimes do that. And you figure out where those directions are. It's just a compass, basically, you know. And you open space and then you close it at the end. And he's riding on those animals, some sort of ancestor woman. Literally every single one of those. I don't know if he interacted with a jaguar or a puma, because I think it's pumas around there, which is sort of like a mountain lion. I think it's the same animal, actually. Not that you see any. They'd be deeper into the mountains or the jungle or wherever. You just see lots of like dogs, just wild dogs that are, you know, domesticated dogs that are just roaming free kind of thing. But yeah, so he had this vivid experience, but yeah, and I don't know if it was the first night or second night, but I had, another beautiful experience. I spewed a little quicker the second night. I remember that. I didn't hold it as much. It's like, all right, man, let's not do that again.
Lesson, yeah.
It still was a bit of but it was done. And I remember the guy that was in my room had a real rough purge. It was definitely the second night.
Okay.
And he was like spewing really hard. He was in the room, not sort of off at the toilet. And I remember Eric and Nilda were very much singing some more intense Icaros at him and ringing those bells and stuff. And it was like a dinosaur was coming out of him. It was like, it was like, bleh. Yeah. And so I sort of got the feeling like he's purging something pretty deep. Or maybe it's almost like, could you say exorcism? I don't know. Well, not to the point where, but yeah, something heavy. Yeah. And they were really trying to clear it. And I remember they were ringing the bells because around the room there was a lot of these sort of energies that sort of had crocodile heads that would sort of shift around and change into something else.
Wow. So you were seeing all this?
I was seeing that, yeah.
Very
and
intense.
they were sort of whirlwinding around and a lot of sort of teeth and stuff. So they looked a bit more like a more predatory looking anyway. The weird part was... So I saw that they rang the bells, they sort of cleared the space, and his purging eventually finished. It was sort of all around similar time frames, if you can really track time when you're in the ayahuasca dimension. Yeah. And pretty much, this is the weird part. And I can't remember if this was, I think it's before the San Pedro, because that's right pretty much at the end of the retreat. Yeah. There's like another day after that. You're heading back pretty much the next day, I think, to your hotel. But we went, after the 2 ayahuasca experiences, and I'd seen all this stuff, we went to 2 places. We went to the museum, and it was an Incan museum, and there was like dioramas and recreations of what the society would have looked like and stuff like that. And I was like, I saw that on my vision.
What?
Not necessarily the diorama version,
right? The
real version. You know what I mean?
Man, yeah.
Like the headdresses and stuff, and the weird sort of sounds that they had pre-recorded too, of some sort of chants that must have either been similar or they know to be like roughly what at least one of the chants used to sound like. But the headdresses and stuff that I saw Eric and Nilda in, and all that, but theirs were proper. This was like a bodgy version of what I saw. Yeah. And I was like, what the fuck? And the being that came up, the 2-dimensional being, that was the big statue out the front of the museum.
This one, yeah. I think that's like Inti or not Inky, but one of the deities of the Incan, religion. Yes. Wow.
Yeah. That was the dude I saw. So I was like, that's weird that I'm like, that's, because you don't always get concrete stuff from this, but there's those shared hallucinations which are rare on other substances. Some of those things that are a bit like, they feel a bit more concrete, I guess. That for me was very interesting and concrete because it's like I saw this and now I'm seeing it after I saw it.
That's right.
Not before. It wasn't in my subconscious and coming up in the trip.
Right.
It came up and then I saw it in reality
That's
after.
Right, yeah. So it's not like you saw it before and the version that you saw on the outside was, now
mixing in with my
with your inner reality.
Was the other way around.
Oh my God.
And I was like, get the fuck out of here. So that was a bit like, wow. And then remember how I said the weird teeth? Yeah. So that I saw a diorama of, which by the way sounds undioramable, right?
Yeah.
in the town, not that day when we went to the museum, but after we all went back, because we all sort of hung out as a bit of a group on and off a little bit. The New Zealand guys were really hard to line up and catch up with. I was like, I'll meet you in town. And they're like, yeah, no worries. I'd go there. They just wouldn't show up. No, whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, Jono was too sleepy. Or again, I'm forgetting the other guy's name. Apologies. And anyway, so in town, in a window of some sort of shop across from the hotel where the woman, I think her name was Susan, and Jarrett were staying. Gerhard is his name. Gerhard. I'm saying Jarrett. That's the name of a guy that used to work with us at our supplement store.
Yeah.
Really cool kid.
Yeah.
Shout out to him. But also shout out to Gerhard. But across from where she was staying was a much more opulent, nice hotel. You know, she must have had a little bit more cash. And he was sort of visiting her there because they sort of hit it off. They sort of had something going. There's some sort of window. I don't know if it was a shop or what exactly it was. You know, it's vague. But the diorama in it was all these weird creatures that I saw flying around the room.
Wait. So the actual creatures, it wasn't just the teeth, like
they're weird plasticine models of teeth, like faces with sort of teeth coming out, and like, and I'm like, wait, what the fuck is this? And it's like the diorama is actually like the scene I saw almost, like swirling around. I was like, they must know what this must be. This is something, and this. I don't know. I never got to the bottom of that either. Yeah. But if we do go back, we got to find that spot because it wasn't too far from the place where you and I both stayed at different times.
Okay.
Sort of down the hill a bit more.
Yeah.
I'm acting like I'm going to find it again in Cusco and like.
Hey, you never know.
9 years later.
Yeah.
Is there a diorama around here somewhere, guys, with the teeth? Like, I'm not describing it well because it's very hard to describe.
Yeah.
And it's sort of very bold colors, like bright pinks and yellows, and so I see that in the town, and I'm just like, I don't fucking know, man. Like, I don't even, at that point, it didn't even seem weird because I'm just like, yeah, sure, of course. Like, of course, there it is.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I see it? And I should have taken a photo of it. Like, I don't even know what the hell I was thinking. I didn't get around to, or, you know, we moved on and I was like, did you guys see that?
Yeah.
And I think they were like, oh, maybe. Like, I don't remember there being a big moment where everyone was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I saw a lot of things after being represented, and so the local culture must know about some of those things that you happen to see on those visions, and they must be symbolic, like of course Eric said, and they must represent certain things that I don't fully understand. And it could also be that Eric and Nilda are injecting some of that folklore into the ceremony themselves. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's possible.
I
don't know.
I think it's probably Pachamama that's actually creating, and like you said, I feel like it might be. Not a common, I don't want to say the word common because it's definitely not common, but they are shared experiences between. So like when you know, you had mentioned in the last episode, like how I had seen this guy in a scientist kind of outfit, and then you said, oh, Byron saw the same thing.
Man. He was tripping balls.
Like, that, like, you know, you see the same thing. So now it's like you've had this experience that someone had as well, and created this diorama to kind of, you know, explain what it was that they saw inside their vision. And then you see it and you're like, wait a minute, I just saw that.
Yes.
So it's like, it kind of, you know, puts things into perspective about the reality of, you know, having these, you know, shared experiences while doing ayahuasca. So that's really cool, man.
Yeah, it definitely makes you realize there's something to this.
Yeah.
It's not just random, you know, it's more of a structured universe that you're entering. That's why, much like you said earlier, it's
structured universe.
I love that, you know what I mean? There's
key.
There's rooms people have been in before.
Yeah.
And that's a Terence McKenna thing too. I reckon, I think he talked about, there was some new substance he tried once, and it felt like he popped into a realm where no human had ever been before, because he was kind of the first to enter it. I can't remember what that substance was. I have to look that up. But and he was just like, it must have been something like, I don't know if it was ketamine but it was some sort of human-derived thing that was just like, it was a blank canvas almost psychedelically, because no one had started to sort of, you know, I don't know, lay out that realm, like sort of like in a Minecraft way or whatever. Whereas places like ayahuasca have been visited very often. That was kind of the theory Terence was putting forward in that snippet or wherever I saw that. I used to read a lot more stuff about him. It's a little bit harder to find now. I follow a lot of accounts that are like aimed at him or quotes of his and stuff, but rarely do I see the posts. I don't know if Instagram's like suppressing that stuff or what. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's probably not the best source of information to be going to anyway, waiting to see what comes in your feed from Instagram. You know, how lazy of me anyway.
Yeah.
I don't see it in my feed, so I'm not really consuming that really good information that I should be seeking out. Like, yeah, well, that's on you. So anyway, that happened. Then we did the Wachuma on the last day, and that was that beautiful day. I did talk about a bit in our last pod where we took it during the daytime, so you don't have it at night like ayahuasca. We went and walked up the mountain, and Eric and Hilda dropped us each off at our own little spot up the mountain, these little grassy patches with birds chirping and fucking condor. I think it was an eagle. I don't know. It could have been a condor. That would have been awesome. I don't think I saw any condors when I was there, and they used to be plentiful in the area. I mean, remember the dead soldiers were being feasted on after that battle at Sacsayhuaman. That's like a historic battle that you can read about where the Spaniards sort of defeated the last stronghold of the Incas at the time. So really sad. So there's a bit of folklore around the condors. But anyway, some giant bird circling way up above me, and Eric and Nilda sort of walked up further on their own. So after they dropped us all off, I think I was like the last one, they just went up further. And that's when I sort of got that sense of because I was asking, I've got it in my little notes on my phone actually, because you know Apple brings across that iCloud backup onto every phone you have after, which is kind of cool. And it was kind of like I was asking, like, you know, what do I do next? What should I do? Because, you know, I'd quit Apple and I was really over it, and you know, I had a little website going selling some supplements and so on, and it was kind of like chuckling. Sort of saying like, you know what to do, do it. And I was like, oh, fuck, okay. So it puts the ball back in your court. It's like, all right, so you're just going to act on what I think is the right thing to do. So it gave me a little bit of permission to pursue it. And other than that, it was just a beautiful experience. I could see Jono swimming in the stream down there. And I remember this is around the time we were all getting a sense of kind of a spirit animal that each of us had. And his was definitely a wolf. Mine was like some sort of puma or cat, this sort of, I guess like a same color as like a lioness, but you know, probably a puma or like a cougar or something that has that sort of same sort of coat. Felt some sort of connection to that. And it was a sea otter for Jono's friend. And you know, the list went on. Everyone sort of had, and you'd be like, you know, again, you're still in the haze of doing these things. So you still somehow, one toe is still in the ayahuasca world slightly. Right. And you're like, yeah, definitely sea otter. Like, and now it's like, I don't know why did I think that, but he said it, and I was almost going to say it before he did. And so it was a really beautiful day. And then I've got some photos of that too. And then that wraps up, and that kind of concludes our time there. We did go visit Machu Picchu though. That might have been on the day after the final day.
So you went? Oh my God.
Yeah, they took us. Yeah. They don't come with you, but it was part of the package, and you know, you got your bus ticket and everything. And Gerhardt was there to kind of talk, you know, if we needed anything as well. So as a group we went, and stunning. I got some photos of that too. Yeah,
it's I don't know how I went 2 times, and on my third I finally went there. I mean, it is a sight to behold. You know, just as high up in the mountains as it is, and like when I went, like I was just, you know, in a state of meditation. I was just imagining like life going on around me when people were actually living there, and there's like this one part where there's like a landing. And there's nothing there right now. Like it's like just a grassy kind of flat area. And I was like, this is where the houses were. This is where the actual, like all the other places to me were more ceremonial or more like they were for like someone of nobility or something like that. But the place where I was, for some reason, like I was saying, like, oh, this is where like the thatched huts, or this is where the people actually stayed, and they had, you know, their houses kind of like in a row or lined up, and people would just, you know, that's where they slept. And but there's nothing there now, and I was just meditating. I was just like, oh, this is where I feel that energy is.
Yes,
you know? But just being there and just overlooking, you know, I went up to like one of the highest points where you could kind of like look down, and I think there was like a pathway behind me where the people that are hiking, you know, the 3-day hike to get up there, they would
Inca
come.
Trail,
the Inca Trail. It would come up at this height, and I was there. I went up very high, and you know, oh man, it was incredible just to look over and say, oh my God, they created a civilization all the way up here. You know, like they carried these stones. There's no quarry around there where they could. So someone had to carry all these stones up and all the stonework and everything.
It's out of control.
Yeah. What was your experience when you were like there?
I remember. Yeah. You could see there was one point that seemed like some sort of astrological.
Oh yeah,
you remember that spot? And it's like they were talking about how they would fill those bowls with water so you could look at the stars like by looking down.
I didn't know about that. Man.
Yeah, so it does reappear in a lot of cultures where like that's how you map the night sky. So it's like if you put, I mean, we can even do it now, right?
Yeah.
You know, obviously the night sky is very light polluted, but yeah, it's a way of mirroring the night sky so you can see like a clear map of where the constellations are at a given time, and you can see the Amazon River. It's actually called a different name by the time it reaches that part of Peru, but it's the same tributary, same river from up there too. That's what that waterway is.
Okay.
There's a lot of really interesting energy. I mean, there's just so many tourists there, and so much time that I guess it's been visited as well that you can sort of understand. Like, okay, so it's hard to get back to the pristine time where this was what it was, you know, and you find yourself doing the same thing that you were like trying to sort of go back in time and view it. And they talk about how tourists fall off that thing every year, right? People fall to their death.
Yes, I remember because like I have had a fear of heights since you know I was young. That's like my thing, but you know, in order to get over that, I always make sure that whenever I'm up like really high, that I always look over. Yeah, you know, just to get out of that fear, you know.
Right.
And I remember when I was that high up, and I looked over, and I was like, oh my God, there's nothing stopping me from falling right over right now.
Yeah.
You know, like you have to be really careful.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, man.
They haven't put anything. There's still to the time I went. Yeah. There's no real barriers to stop you stumbling off.
Oh yeah.
And so you kind of just walking around the site like free range. So I sort of felt a bit bad, like, wow, we're just trampling all over it. But at the same time, I'm honored that you can visit it, and I think it's cool that you can. I think some parts are cordoned off, but not much. So no, it was just breathtaking. I tried to take some good photos. I put them on like my Instagram and whatnot, and just sort of document it a bit. But it was a hell of a way to sort of end that journey. And then after that, we went back to town for maybe a couple of days before each of us started to kind of fly back to or continue the journey. And I remember just feeling very cleansed. Yeah, nice. Very much not in fear anymore of things. So for me, it was just a real good fear purge in general, just generic inhibitory fears. Just got my kind of courageous core back and was able to push ahead and, you know, start a business after that, as you know, and, you know, go through that evolutionary process of that, and which I definitely think is a huge thing in my life, and I never would turn back from that. Obviously now I work a job as well as running the business with my wife in the background, me in the background, her at the forefront of it. And, you know, we're trying to maneuver over time to find a way to re-expand that in some way. So I'm really, you know, a lot of this podcast will be supplement people coming on and talking as well. But I love we can, you know, I really want this to have both subjects because I really think psychedelics and spiritual work of this more, I guess, practical and like, I don't know, very much doing style is worth talking about as opposed to just be like, you know, I have my own little beliefs or whatever. It's like, this is a very non-passive way to explore spiritual growth, you know, seeking out ceremonies, psychedelics, retreats. They don't always have to have psychedelics, but, you know, a more proactive approach to actually like having direct experience of the spirit world or the spiritual, you know, experience, as opposed to just being like, one day I'll deal with that like on my deathbed. It's like, I'd rather have a little bit more infrastructure in place before, you know, I'm just crossing over one day, still not sure, wonder what happens, you know.
That's it,
So I like that being a big subject, and it ties into supplementation in a way because, you know, you're taking these things and they're having these massive effects on your reality, right?
Yeah.
But so I'm working on my way back. But the setback makes sense because, you know, you never build, like, I'm sure the first pyramid was a shitty one, right?
Maybe.
Right?
Probably.
I mean, I know in South America, they can see the older versions of those types of pyramids, and they got a lot more sophisticated as time went on.
Yeah.
And that's the experience I had. I put some bad foundations in, made some bad decisions around compliance stuff, and, you know, effectively got, I mean, some business partnerships that didn't work out. And, you know, I now I understand a lot more, and it's a setback, but it's better that it happened now than later. Yeah. And so we're rebuilding slow, and it is a tough time economically as well. So it's a slow rebuild, and but I really want to get back onto getting great herbs and supplements in people's hands that will enrich their lives and help them.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, and I just want to take a step back because I remember when you came back after your retreat with Eric and Nilda and Sapan Inka, you had like this renewed energetic signature about your direction and where you wanted to go.
Right.
And so I was fortunate to be there during this time and to kind of check in with you after you got back to hear about your travels. And then periodically during your setup for your business.
True.
And the one thing that I remember is how, like, universally, like, you just started getting help from everywhere. Like, I remember you were telling me about you kind of connecting with people in the community about, like, you know, you starting your business and kind of talking to them, and people were just coming out of the woodworks. And, you know, how, you know, you found your space to actually, you know, have your business, and then, you know, like, just things just started working out.
Yep.
You know, I remember one specific thing, you know, that you were talking about. You had met, there was a supplement, like a small local supplement company, and the guy who was the owner had a talk with you about, you know, your business, you know, model. And, you know, he was saying there was a certain thing, I don't know, I won't talk about exactly what it is, but, you know, he said, oh yeah, you know, there's this one thing that if you do this, it'll help your business, you know. And it was about, you know, shakes and everything like that, and making sure that people had, you know, protein, and you had a setup in your, and, you know, I feel like just having those little clues and having people come out of the woodworks to, you know, just help and give you support and advice and share, you know, their knowledge of what has worked for them. Like, that was a huge green flag rather for you and starting up your business, and really helped to see you succeed and thrive for, you know, the time that you did. I just found that it was really, really amazing, you know?
I remember that feeling where a lot of opportunities and ways to get through obstacles were kind of appearing. And then later there would almost be like some obstacle aspects to that too, though. So it's like this Jenga game. I don't remember a small supplement company owner advising me on the shakes though, but
really? Okay. I remember you telling me that story, and there was a guy, and he was like, you know, you work right next to a gym, and he was just like, you know, if you do this, you know, then you'll have lots of people coming in and asking for this. And then
it might have been that we were already gonna do it, and he was like reaffirming.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Like a great idea.
That sounds more.
It
more
could
right,
could be, because I remember I was talking to I think it was Nick from Gentech, who we didn't end up stocking.
Okay.
But I was talking to a few reps and brand owners, and they were he remember him giving some supportive, like, you should do this and that.
Okay.
There could well be Nick Jones from Gentech.
Like
Shout out to him. He definitely isn't watching, I'm sure, because A, we didn't end up stocking his products, and B, he's a busy man running a brand, and he's an MC of some key bodybuilding shows in Australia, and, you know, he's a real figure. But it might have been him. I remember having a great chat with him right at the beginning, and but there was also lots of wrong turns. This is the thing too. Like, there was a lot of people coming out of the woodwork that were wrong as well, and that I would have to figure out on the fly. Like, no, like there was some guy that was going to run the smoothie side while we ran the sup side, and there was thoughts on a collaboration, and later I realized, like, that doesn't make any sense.
Like two different
We'll
worlds.
need that. We'll need the revenue, and he was just slowly designing the space to be purely aimed at smoothies. Like, in his little sketches, he was getting excited about it. And it's like, this doesn't make any sense. It was just a thought of like a rent share or something. But there was that, and there's a few other iterations of that, of people wanting to do business with me, that later I realized it was more beneficial to them than it was to us in the long run. And when the chips were down, that became very apparent. So there was a lot of, it's a weird journey in that way, because it'll clear the path for you, but at the same time you get equal amounts of like, I guess the parasites come out of the woodwork too. It's really weird. It's like, even when you first open your business, a few weird people come in and you just get the boundary tests, some strange operators come in and try to do something shonky, and you have to clear all that off too. So there's all these different phases to starting something new, basically, that I'm more familiar with now. And every business owner seems to go through it. Even when some new gym owners opened a gym in Alexandria, not far away, and I remember telling him, hey, this will probably happen. You'll get some weirdos come in, because whenever the business is new, it's like there's a little bit of some sort of energy, and a lot of new creation is being born, and a lot of that energy attracts a lot of things, and you have to know how to filter it out, and keep your nest warm. Let those eggs hatch. Got to keep the predators away. It's a complex little process. It is. And I remember we found a friend designed the store. A chippy turned up. The chippy took really way too long, though. It was very difficult. And so the universe is teaching you on the fly, as well as providing solutions. It's like you need to manage the project harder. You need to be right on top of that shit. That friend that designed it very quickly, this is a strange thing. And these friends could watch later and think, have an opinion on what I'm saying. But very quickly, the people that help, if things go well, it's like something happens and they want a bigger cut now. There's this quick switch to it starts from like, oh, that's great, I hope I can help you out, to like, I did it. You're succeeding because of the great thing I did. It's very strange, when things work. So you've got to keep it pretty sovereign, I've learned too, or just have help from people that are at a level of consciousness that's sort of beyond some of those pitfalls where they'll get greedy, or they'll want to take, or, there's going to be, I don't want to say like treachery or stabbing in the back. It's a bit too extreme to put it that way. But it's a very, you learn a lot about human nature. There's a very skewed sort of perspective that everyone has on their level of contribution and what they should receive. It's very strange. It must be hard, and that's why bands, musicians, any kind of collaborative project is hard to do. So when someone does it well, and it doesn't fall apart. I got a lot of respect for that.
Do you feel that like you had that type of insight, in order to see, the intentions of people come out before the ayahuasca ceremony? Would you say that you were pretty, well versed on that? Because I always feel like after doing ayahuasca, there's a certain switch that might be turned on where you start to see things differently, or some new information starts coming to you, or I feel like there's a way that Pachamama kind of interfaces with us to be able to give us that insight, afterwards. So it's interesting that you started seeing this as you were starting your business, and all these things started happening. Do you feel like, that Pachamama's, that experience with ayahuasca had anything to do with you being able to have insight into, those intentions that kind of came up?
No, like I think maybe if I go back, it's going to help with that, because I think I ran into a lot of that and had to learn the hard way. Probably not as bad as I would have been before. Because I think maybe that's the part that was so unknown to me. Working a job your whole life and these different roles, and I was always, it's a bit of a blind spot of mine to be a bit oblivious to the political play, the way the interplay is going to go down. And sometimes getting outmaneuvered. I mean, not sometimes, many times. That boss that's just like he's your best mate, but behind closed doors, he'll happily use you as the scapegoat for anything going wrong. That was Loido. And then he's like, yeah, mate. Yeah. And then in your appraisal, you're hearing this stuff you've never heard before. You're like, what are you talking about? But he's got to put it in there because he said some of this shit. And his boss is going to see it and he wants to make sure he's telling you. And you're like, we never had this discussion, you know. Lots of stuff like that.
Yeah, wow.
I think, a little bit oblivious to what people are really up to. Much sharper now after these business experiences. Much sharper now. And if you've got any weak underbelly, someone's going to stick a knife in that. So what I mean by that is if you're doing something that they can hold against you, doing something not quite legal, something where you're bending the rules, if there's any friction, if you ever put any pressure on any of those people to perform or something like that, they'll stab you right there.
Wow, man.
Yeah, you have to.
It's the world we live in, man. It's sad.
It is. And it's also like the only way to evolve beyond it is to go, that was my responsibility. That was my fault.
Holding yourself accountable.
100%. 100% accountability.
That's a big one.
It's a big one. It hurts because you want to play the victim and you want vengeance.
You want to pass the buck. Yeah.
Yeah, you want vengeance on them. Like, I hope that karma comes around and bites them in the ass.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I'd hate to be, and maybe it will. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. We all have to pay the piper.
Yeah.
But I paid mine in full now after some of those business issues. And I realize now everything's on solid ground now. You know, obviously you do your best to get your tax bill down. Don't get me wrong. You everything on solid ground, working within the confines of what, you know, is doable, is legal, is like, you know, you want to be smart. You want to be razor sharp. But no more bad building blocks. But, you know, the base of the pyramid has to be solid before you can get right up to that top. And I had some products and things in that base that were like, everyone's selling these, you know, it's helping, you know, as like nothing now, you know, complete burn back and rebuild of the pyramid with the right foundation and no business partners that aren't like, you know, the business relationship ends at the payment for services or goods. So no more people that are like 10% of this is yours and no. No, if you're doing some graphic design work, you know, or whatever, pay you whatever that is, no problem. And then that artwork becomes mine.
That's right.
100% mine.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to do it real clean.
Yeah.
Because things get pretty wacky pretty quick.
Yeah.
But what I've learned too is that when you do walk the path clean and clear like that, you become more impervious.
You do.
Yeah.
You do. They have nothing to hold against you.
I mean, it should be obvious, right?
Yeah.
But it's like sometimes you got to learn it the hard way.
Yeah.
Because the temptation's there to try. These guys are doing these shortcuts and it's working. And so you think, you know, in your naivete that maybe you're missing out on an advantage here. And you feel this like, oh shit, like if I don't leverage this, I'm going to fall behind. But it's a long game.
It's a long game.
I didn't have that mentor there telling me this. I had to learn it the hard way. That's like build slow, but like really solid foundational. And then you'll be much further ahead one day when you turn around 10 years down the track than those other guys that tried to shift. So, you know, unfortunately I had to go through, it's the thing that you said that, you know, if you don't make the decision, the universe will eventually make the decision for you.
That's it, yeah.
And Aubrey Marcus says it a different way. He loves this one. It's like, if you don't listen to the whispers, pretty soon you'll have to hear the screams. So unfortunately I had to get to that point where it's like, you know, it's like, hey buddy. And it's like, all right, fuckhead, here's a $200,000 fine. Oh, okay. Okay. I heard the scream. And hey, it could have been worse than that, right?
Yeah.
So we had to maneuver around that. That's just a bit of a vague. I'm not getting specific here, obviously. If anyone's listening, they're like, what is he fucking talking about? But, you know, these are things that can happen in business. And we'll go into depth on that at a different time, you know, maybe on a more supplement or business-orientated pod. Yeah. But so, I mean, to, in a long way, answer your question, I wish Pachamama gave me all those insights, but I wasn't ready to be that. Like if I went back now and she upgraded maybe that insight for me a bit more, I'd be much better with that upgrade now because I understand the full ramifications of it.
But then here's the thing. Would you have believed it had you been told back then, you know? Would you have really been able to follow through on saying, okay, this is what, you know, my future holds. This is what I'm going to experience. This is what I need to do to circumvent these challenges I'm going to, you know, have. Like, It's like, you know, when given that information up front, how many of us would actually follow it, man?
I wouldn't have been ready.
Yeah.
Probably not.
That's honest, man. I like that, man.
I mean, I would have loved to have got the roadmap, but it just chuckled, like this voice on the Wachuma anyway. It just said, you know what to do, get about it. So I think I was just too far off all the things it could maybe start teaching me until I got amongst the weeds and just got amongst it and just got in the jungle of business and I probably needed a lot of these bad experiences to know what it feels like to taste that blood in your mouth. Yeah. Because that is underrated sometimes. And sometimes if you don't have that knowledge, like it's just a decent taste anyway, you walk around never having to experience it. And so you get a little cocky, you know, because you maneuvered correctly, but you don't know what it's like to fuck up either. So you sort of don't have this compassion. You know, not a lot of people had compassion for me. And they don't because they just think you're an idiot. I'd never do that. I'm an idiot. And and I noticed because I do that, you know, it's I'm not having a go at them. It hurts at the time though. You'd think like, oh fuck, why doesn't anyone have my back? But you're just kind of the village idiot that fucked up, you know, in those circles you were moving in. Never going to happen to them because they're not as dumb as you. But when they were working with you and it was advantageous to them, no worries, they'll take something of that financial support, that exposure, this, that. And they know, you know, they're fully aware, but no one's giving you like any sort of, hey man, like, you know, we should be careful there. And no. That's all your problem. But when it goes tits up, and so that's hard, but you have to taste a little bit of that blood in your mouth to go like, oh, fuck. Okay, I got it. I got it on a deep level, on a really deep level. So now I understand it. I have compassion for anyone going through it, making those mistakes, and I can advise them from a place of having made that mistake. So my words have just more impact. You know, there's a young girl at work that wanted to do something once. So this is at New Balance right now. So I work at New Balance during the day, you know, work on the NTS behind the scenes, and I do Sundays there. And she was about to lose her license. And she was considering paying someone to pretend that they took the points. You know, there's like a syndicate that does this or whatever. And I told her, I said, you know, I wouldn't do it. I tell you why I wouldn't do it. You know, I've made mistakes like I haven't made that specific mistake, by the way. I've never actually done that. I've never actually done anything specifically in that realm either. A little bit different where I made some bad moves. More about supply and demand, but you know, you have to make sure you're working within the confines of the compliance in your industry, even if other people aren't. Because sometimes you think they're going to be the canary in the coal mine, but sometimes it's going to be you. That's it. Right? You sort of think everyone's doing it, so if I do it, it'll be fine because I'm doing it in a smarter way.
That's right.
And they'll get pegged first, but sometimes you underestimate your reach and your exposure and the knowledge of you that people seem to have, you know. Sometimes you're attracting a lot of eyes and you don't realize that you're the next guy. And maybe in a way it's a compliment because you're actually building some notoriety around some of the good things you're doing too, don't get me wrong. But you forget that it's like, no, you might be pretty noticeable. You might be underestimating that.
That's right.
But anyway, she's talking about doing that. I said, don't do it because the risk isn't worth the reward. You get your license. You're young. You can lose your license for 6 months.
Yeah, that's it.
You only just got
just lose it for 6 months.
You don't have kids. You don't have a job where you
points.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't have a job where that's going to make you lose your job. The risk is massive. This is fraud.
Yeah.
This is serious fines and potential jail time. So, and I could speak from a place of like putting that on the line and fucking that up. And something about that I think resonates more now. Hopefully she didn't do it. I don't believe she did, but I just feel like I could be more helpful now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm okay with it. I'm fine with it. I don't care if people in the industry think a certain way about me or whatever. I'm going to lead with my chin and be like, yeah, I made some bad moves. They may not be what you heard because you don't know the specifics at all, to be honest. People rarely get the full story.
Yeah.
But I will rebuild and I will be one of the best operators and I will help people more than I did before.
Yeah.
Not less.
Yeah.
I won't become more paranoid. I'll become more open, honest, and giving because I'm going to be more comfortable with who I am now.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to do anything that I would be ashamed of anymore.
Yeah.
You know, you grow out of it. You grow through it. So that's the approach I'd have now. That's why I think it's a good time to go back soon, like in a year, 6 months, 3 months, 2 years. That's all soon to me. Doesn't have to be like right away, but I'm ready for some more knowledge now. But I had to learn some big lessons.
Yeah, man. That's part of it. That's part of the journey too, you know? And I feel like Pachamama knows that. Pachamama, you know, because, you know, life is a roller coaster. It's not, you know, going to be a straight road, you know, the whole time for no one. You know, that's not part of the experience we come here to get, you know? But I feel like you were prepared in some, you know, way to go through what you went through and to come back and have the experiences that you did. And I feel like on a certain level, Pachamama prepared you for that. And, you know, Wachuma, you know, gave you, you know, some direction as to which way you should go. You followed it. You found success, you know, and then found a bunch of other learning experiences with it. I don't think there were drawbacks in any way, you know, shape or form. You still got your place. You're still, you know, doing well, you know what I mean? And it's just like, I feel like it was just, you know, just a big learning process for you.
Yeah. And it's hard to fight back up through it. You know, we might just be starting to get back on our feet now. Just long way to go.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, there's no chance of owning a home anytime soon. There's no chance. But for me, that's not necessarily the path I wanted to take either. I'd rather invest in business moves that will generate more wealth. And you know, you need a bit of free capital to be able to do that you can't tie up in a house right now anyway. And fortunately, Tomomi is cool with that too. But I'll definitely never do anything that puts us at risk again. And I think I'm comfortable. I think the trick is to be comfortable with those learning experiences and the fact that, you know, people's opinions of you may have shifted, changed. There's like some dirt on your face. You have to lean in as opposed to like wilt away. Yeah. You know, I'm going to come back 10 times harder. It's slower though.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be okay with any of the shame or the other stuff because that's what's really hard. You know, you're dealing with all this stuff and you're also feeling like, and you get what it's like to be the bad guy in stories too. You know, people love to be like, shame on this person, you know, the shame of, you know, lack of success or failure. And it's like, you have to fight through that too because that's all an illusion too. And that's their limiting beliefs. It's like, everyone should be okay to fuck up. I don't think people should go down a really dark path and harm others and all this sort of stuff. I don't get it wrong. Don't get me wrong, but I think in our society we really have this thing where you know, losing is just so like frowned upon. Like that's how you grow.
That's how you grow and you learn, man.
Yeah.
What you just explained is a big part of shadow work. I'm doing shadow work with my therapist.
Right.
And part of that is, you know, acknowledging the times in our lives when we were wrong, acknowledging the shame that we may have around those experiences, and learning to be okay with it and learning to, you know, just not see it as something that's shameful, just seeing it as an experience. And that's the integration part. It's just, you know, seeing it as like a learning experience or whatever we did that was wrong as something that needs to be, you know, doesn't need to be corrected. It just needs to be acknowledged and seen as what it is, you know. It was an experience that I had, whether I liked it or not, or I felt I did good or felt I did bad, usually the bad part because that's the shadow aspect, you know, because other than that, you know, when it becomes a shadow is when, you know, we don't acknowledge that we messed up and then we try and hide that from people or to do the same. Like if you kept going down the same road and saying, you know what, I got caught, but I'm still going to do this, you know, I'm just not going to tell anybody this time or whatever, you know, and that would have grown into a shadow aspect because then maybe you would have started getting away with it and just like, oh, this is the way to do it, you know, but you totally learn from that, you know, and you're just like, oh, I am integrating the part of me that, you know, didn't feel okay with that and felt shameful at what I did, but I learned from it and I'm going to tell others, you know, this is the way you go about it this time, you know? So that's really cool, man.
It grows in the dark corners. And you got to shine a light on it. Because these shitty things, they like to hang out in the shadows. So the shadow work is just shining a light on it and embracing it, and it can't hide and live there and grow there. And anyone that's in a lot of denial about any of their opportunities, they're usually the ones that those opportunities chase them around. You know, I should not have been one of those people. You know, I don't ever talk, and I know you don't necessarily either, as though it's not something that we're all guilty of, right? It's like, so you got to be like, yeah, okay, that's a thing for me that. And then that's a big step. It doesn't mean like, and obviously you can get stuck into like, I acknowledged it, so I'll just keep doing it. Like, obviously we've got to work on stuff too. But you shine your light on those things in the shadows, and they just can't get roots in. You know, it's the same in my workplace. You know, I'm running a region full of lots of people, and I always like to get involved in anything a bit shitty early. Because I've learnt the hard way. You let get some roots. Right. It's in the shadow. I just get my light in there. I'm like, what's going on here? What's happening? Hey guys. And I just get involved in those little dark corners as a point, because I want to make sure that it doesn't turn into a bigger problem, you know. And there's nothing wrong with having some awkward, difficult conversations, because they only get worse down the track anyway. So whatever it is, I go in and tackle it as best I can. So, I mean, and that might be another part of the journey that, you know, Pachamama or the universe had in store for me, like to get back to stewarding a bit of a bigger tribe again, because that's an important role that I guess I need to play with these new learns. But then hopefully we can, you know, invest that energy back into growing the business. Now, what that looks like, I don't know. I really want to develop something that'll help men product-wise from a herbal perspective.
Nice.
Because I feel like that's where my expertise really lies. So I want to at least bring out that product, you know, and then see what happens next. But I really want to meet a need, like, and to help. And I want to get the really good herbs in a simple one place, take a scoop kind of thing. Because capsule laws have become quite difficult in Australia. So, but you can, you know, keep things in a powder form. And so we'll go from there. We'll see what happens though. It's going to be difficult to sort of get off the ground, because it's another risk, and you know you're dipping into that little bit of money you built back after losing it all. So, but I feel called to do that at some point when the time's right. So we'll wait to see the path clear. But for now, I really want to keep doing this. You know, the podcasts, the content, and get the communication out there for people so they can learn from anything that I've gotten wrong.
Man, you should do a pod about that, man.
100%.
Yeah.
And, you know, learn about the herbs and the subs, and but also learn about all the great things you can get from ayahuasca and exploring that kind of spiritual realm. That's why I really like getting you on, man. And I think there's so much more that we can explore in coming episodes too.
Yeah, man, I'm down for it.
Because this just touched on that experience, me coming back, and then kind of the business journey, you know, without being too specific about every stage, you know, we had after, because it's been about 8 years in business after ayahuasca.
Oh, wow, 8 years. So
the rise, and then the setback, and then the, you know, and just, all the crazy stuff along the way. But I really have more of a guiding compass now after those experiences. And I really got into a book that I think you'd love called The Diamond Cutter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know if I told you about that yet. I was telling Byron about it, and he's like, nah.
Oh, okay.
I don't like them books. Well, it tells you to be good? Nah. It's a Buddhist book on business. Essentially is how it's being presented. But it's actually one of the Buddha's sutras, one of the earliest ones that was actually written down. First one ever actually to be written down. And basically he's teaching you the secret of the universe, right? But it's pretty simple. It's just all about planting mental seeds. It's very karma orientated. And so each of these seeds that you're planting is resprouting in your reality all the time. So it takes you through very practical ways. You know, as a business owner, it gets you into it, because it's sort of like, sales are down, be more generous. It's always like this, whoa. It's, you know, if people aren't listening to you, talk less shit. It calls it idle talk. And it gives you better examples than that, but it's just like, don't talk to them about stuff that's not relevant or important when they're trying to do things. And it's like, it's all just like, often the opposite of what your tendency is to do.
Yes.
As a bit of a human, you know?
Yeah.
A bit of a human. As 10% human. Yeah, that's all. The rest is Neanderthal. So I've been really into that book. I've been trying to listen to it and find it's so easy to get off track with it. But it's like, plant the good stuff out there. Follow this. It's a very good moral compass without you feeling like you're doing it just because I'm scared or inhibited. I'm doing it very purposefully, and that's what the book's big on. It's like you do it with purpose because it makes it work better. You don't just do it because you do it because I want the best for me, my people, and the person involved. So I'm going to diamond cut. I'm going to do it the right way. So I'm going to look for what's the highest good in this situation and always do it. And that might be telling someone to fuck off still, right? Because they need to be away from here because this is bad for them and you, and you know, they're maybe the wrong kind of people in your life. It doesn't mean being weak. It's actually just always trying to plant the right seed. So, you know, that might be giving, that might be giving someone time, you know, money or whatever, but it's also not being weak and, you know, supporting someone you shouldn't either, you know, and being taken advantage of. So it's hard to sort of dial it in after you first read the book, but it's got plenty of good examples in there, and it's got a good kind of, it sort of talks you through his journey. Geiji Michael Roach, the guy that wrote the book, building up a diamond business with these principles.
Okay. Yeah, I love that kind
Dude, I'll give you a copy.
Nice, man.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's easy to read too, and then you kind of want to pin up on the wall like if this is not working, do this, because that's so like, all right, an instruction manual for this fucking thing called life. I'll take it. Now, obviously, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, but there's nothing in the book that would do anything but make you like more on track, and a good person. Right. I think the only pitfall that I could see someone coming to from it is, you know, knowing when to set boundaries still. Like obviously it doesn't tell you to not set boundaries. Yeah. But it's talking about, you know, just things in business. Like if someone needs help, you know, like I've used it many times now where I used to clam up. I'm like, okay, no, do it. The book says do it. So someone needs help at another store. Yeah. I'll call all my staff, find out who needs a shift and get them there as a matter of priority. Whereas before I'd be like, I think they're all busy. Put it in the group chat, which no one reads. Nah, no one, sorry. You know, and then instead I'm like, I check who needs a shift that day. I personally text them, say, hey, you know, DJ really needs help over at Bondi, man. Like you want some extra shifts? You help him a lot and you get some extra coin. Win-win-win. I took some extra time that I would otherwise, you know, little things like that it pushes you to go a bit, because then
that's a big step,
it's going to come back around to, you know, that energy will return to me at some point.
That's right.
And not only is it's a good thing to do anyway. So, you know.
Yeah.
Well, man, this has been another awesome chat. Sorry, man. I did so much talking this time.
No, man. It was incredible to hear your story. And
I just really wanted you to hear it actually too. Yeah. I never fully told you everything.
Yeah. Like it's interesting because you know, every time that you know, we've spoken about this before, but I felt like there was more details this time. It just gave me more insight into what you experienced, man. I love talking about this stuff all day, man. Yeah. This is my happy place.
We'll do it again soon because you got some wild shit on your phone that we can maybe talk about if you want to. You saw something that I just like, it's undeniable. Yeah, the night after we met for the first podcast, it was pretty intense. That's crazy. Yeah. So we'll open up with that on the next round. Yeah. But look, until then, man, I hope you enjoyed that coffee.
I did, man.
I got that last minute.
It's always
Campos
great,
Superior Blend.
Thank you.
It hit all right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's good, man.
Yeah, and all right, well, I'll get this edited up and we'll put it out and we'll do it again real soon because I feel like we got a lot more to cover, to be honest.
Man, hey, I'm open.
I think you're going to be a staple guest. But no, awesome. Well, peace and love, man. And
peace and love and return,
brother. Thank you so much. Yeah, anyone listening, same to you. We'll be back with another round with Malik. Yeah.